Welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. Your hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V. S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the CPG Guys podcast. I'm of course Shri, co-founder and co-host of the CPG Guys and also co-founder and partner at Think Blue Consulting. As builders, connectors, and amplifiers, Think Blue shapes the future of commerce to drive your growth. Please do get in touch with us, Shri at thinkblueconsulting.co. Please do listen to my older daughter Ria Raj's music, www.riaraj.com. That's R-H-E-R-A-J. And a new song, Hot Couture, has been out for a month. And my younger daughter, Lara Raj, is a member of the Geffen Records Universal Music Group, Cat's Eye, who now has over 4 million followers in each of their social platforms. Not able to join me today is my fellow co-founder, Peter V. S. Bond, and he's not co-hosting this podcast. He serves as head of industry and client engagement at Flywheel, the e-commerce acceleration division of none other than Omnicom. And before we get to our esteemed guest today, let me ask you to ask that you consider following us on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating there, because the rating tells us how we're doing as a podcast, and the review tells us whether the quality of conversations we're having with our guests is exactly what you want to hear on this show. And now let's get over to our main event. A reminder, this was recorded live at the Commerce Media Brand Event Summit in Atlanta in mid-March. And over to our guest now. Hi, this is Shri, and I'm here at the Commerce Media Brand Summit, Atlanta, Georgia. And there was no way I was going to come by Atlanta without talking to Mr. Michael La Kier himself from IGA. Pleasure to have you. Thanks for making time. I know you had to drive 30 minutes, but I sincerely appreciate it, man.
Hey,
thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, always.
And so, Mike, before we start with the Q&A segment and we get into the topics here that I have for you, can you tell me what you do for IGA and what does IGA do for grocers?
So I'm the Vice President of Brand Development at IGA. And what that means is I lead strategic initiatives, including partnerships. So working with brands and other vendors to help our retailers sell more, be more efficient, more effective in their operations. And ultimately, if we're doing that job well, then we're helping drive shoppers into the store, trips and transactions, and it works for the whole ecosystem. If you're not familiar, IGA is the largest voluntary network of independent grocery stores in the world. We have over 7,500 retail locations globally and 2,200.
Wait, that's larger than Walmart.
I can't speak to how big Walmart is.
It's the largest.
Okay. So we are maybe then the largest grocer worldwide, which is great news. Everything from Australia, South Africa. We just brought on a retailer in Ireland, and continuing to look for more independent retailers to work with.
During this conversation, we're going to discover more in chat, but one of the mistakes I made when I was CCO at General Mills, I didn't pay enough time and attention to the independents. America is in the middle of a volume crisis we're going to get to, but to all our listeners, of course, Michael's LinkedIn profile, IGA's LinkedIn profile, IGA's website will be on the digital liner notes of this podcast for those of you on the go who listen to us from your smartphones.
Well, they say the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem. So independent grocers represent a third of the volume in the U.S., $150 billion. So appreciate that comment. I think one of the misnomers is if you're working with the top retailers in the U.S., you've got everything covered. We know independently owned retailers provide a lot of volume in terms of both dollars and, importantly, units that we'll talk about in a little bit. And importantly, shoppers go there for some significant reasons. It's not all about price.
Community.
It's about community. We're hyper local. We're very tied into the community. Some of our owners, they own the shopping center. They serve on city councils. They're mayors. They're deeply involved in the community.
And so, Michael, that's a question I have for you. Let's start off right there, right? If you go back 10 years, 15 years before the huge prevalence of digital, which has really spawned last 5 years has gone crazy gangbusters, right? Communication from a brand was one to many. Mm-hmm. That's why TV was such an important channel, and it was one way. Yep. Today we are in a one-to-one, and it's two-way where consumers talk back. Is there a better place than a grocery store to do that in a local, independent community grocery store?
Of course, I would say no. I think,
That's the miss, Michael, that America's brands are doing.
Yeah, so last week I was attending the Southeastern Produce Council Expo, and I went in a day early to drive 45 minutes outside of Orlando to visit with one of our National Retail Advisory Board members, Nikul Patel. He owns one store with his wife. He's Indian by way of England, and they're doing an amazing job. They're so connected to the community. The people that we saw while there, I intended to maybe spend an hour. I was there 3 hours. We had such great conversations. Before I left, he's like, Michael, let's walk across the street. And I'm like, why are we walking across the street? He has a food truck that's permanently there. He's built out a parking lot. He's built out games. He's built out picnic tables. It really is a place where the community can come together. And from a business standpoint, it supports all the stuff he's doing besides his deli, gives him excess capacity, and really makes a strong connection with that community in Mount Plymouth, Florida.
And to me, Michael, America is in the middle of a volume crisis for large brands. Peter, of course, my podcast partner, and I.
Who never shows up when we talk.
It's bizarre, isn't it? It is. Hey, Peter, that's actually bizarre. It's happened multiple times that way.
You don't want to get him to Atlanta without talking to me.
I know it's not that he doesn't like you. It's just timing. He's with his mom who's sick, with his daughter. She wanted to see her grandchild, that kind of thing.
Family is the most important.
So that said, Michael, let's talk about the volume crisis, right? Again, to me, one of the connections I made when I sat through the award ceremony at the IGA, award ceremony just 2 weeks ago during NGA, or maybe it was a week ago at the time of this recording. One of the things that really touched me is, wait a minute, if I want to get back to volume, I'm going to have to do it at the community level, and if it's 7,000 outlets, I'm going to have a fighter's chance as a large brand at 7,000 outlets, rather than just one with 4,500, another one with 2,300, and then say I'm only going to focus on 20,000 of those. So I'd love to hear, what are independents telling you about the volume crisis? Are they getting a fighting chance from brands?
Let's go back a couple of years. So the reason my job was created, even before I showed up, was because if you talk to brands about all the things you love about independence and all the things you hate about independence, unfortunately at times there could be more things they hate, right? Like you said, hey, a large national retailer, there's one call point. It might be a bitch to work with them, but if you make it happen, right, they can snap their fingers and get everything done at one time. But
I don't know if they snap. I've done this 30 years. No one snaps their fingers and gets it done.
Well, good. So you're proving my point. So, but at independents, right, they're by definition independent. So that could be a one store, like I just talked about in Mount Plymouth. They could be a 400 store, a 500 store. There could be a 50 store, 8 stores. That's complicated for brands. And as you talked about that one-to-many, that shift that CPG did and the marketing through TV, we kind of move and gravitate towards the easy button. And so calling onesie, twosies is complicated. And so when we started talking more recently with brands about the things that are difficult, that's kind of why we set up this role and the way we work at IGA with brands across those 2,200 retailers. And by sort of consolidating that volume, consolidating the conversation, and activating as one really makes a difference and an impact. And
so one important part of that making the impact, so obviously you're running brand partnerships. So you're in the middle of helping drive volume for brands every single day. What about collective bargaining? Do you all also help with cost structures for these independent retailers, or is that done?
So yes and no. So all of the buying and selling either happens DSD, like my former company, Coca-Cola, or through our wholesale partners. So the UNFIs, the CNS, the AWGs of the world are the mainline suppliers for our retailers.
And is that done independently by the independents, or are you all part of those? Do you have a seat at the table? Are you helping in those conversations?
I would say we enable those conversations. So a lot of times what happens is there's some opaqueness to the independent space because brands sell into the wholesalers. They don't necessarily know what's sold through at the retailers. And that's one of the, services we provide is really helping transform that sell-in to sell-through using retailer education and shopper engagement to drive unit volume and dollar volume.
All right, let's talk about brand partnerships, right? I first want to talk about the digital side of the fence because, man, you're one of those few in retail. grew up brick and mortar through a Coca-Cola, through a brand system. Now you've come over to retail, and I see you often engaging on digital conversation, and it's a big part of your remit, getting it out there to the independents. Do you feel the independents are getting what they want from a digital perspective, especially retail media? There's so many dollars to go around. How's that coming to IGA? How are you helping independents? Because there's no real retail media network there. Are you guys building one?
Yeah, so great question in terms of retail media. We actually established the kernels of a retail media network about 8 years ago. And we did that not to increase margin, but was really to drive trips and transactions for our retailers and for brands to create that virtual network that allows that easy button to be pushed and get your message out. And so we started that with offsite, so a little bit different than most retail media networks because we don't control what the retailers do. So we started by geo-targeting around those stores to drive trips and transactions, both to the physical store as well as to the digital storefront.
And when you say offsite, are you referring to like social media channels or?
Social media, programmatic, weather channel, all the places where people
all kinds basically of inventory.
Right, so we have an analytics team that goes in and will work with our retailers to understand their trading area. So it might be that, in the olden days you said, 3-mile radius from the store. So literally you could drop your compass, draw 3 miles, and we thought we were doing a good job. We've sophistication has increased to the point where we can literally find out that, hey, 0.1 miles away is a railroad track, and nobody crosses those railroad tracks. So we're not going to buy any print. We're not going to buy any digital. We're going to be very precise,
very contextual,
right.
And precisely context. Is there such a word? Sure. Precisely contextual.
Sure, we can come up with whatever kind of words we want, but hyper local targeting to make sure that we're finding the right shoppers who are coming into the stores to drive traffic in there and drive those transactions, or conversely, as we've talked about, buy stuff online.
How do you communicate this to brands? Because I'm imagining the MVP for you for that particular task is a shopper marketer with the budget, who's looking. I'd love to learn who is the MVP.
Yeah, so it varies, and that's one of the who's responsible for independence. I'll have to admit, you admitted not paying as much attention.
It was a mistake.
Right.
7,000 outlets. Are you kidding me, man?
I'll admit the same thing. When I worked at Coca-Cola, obviously starting in brand and promotions and only belatedly making it into the retail world, we didn't look at independents as as I look at them now. And so there is a missed opportunity. And so, quite honestly, we'll talk to whoever we should be talking to. We talk to brand, we talk to sales, we talk to omni-commerce shopper.
But you are doing that today. Are you primarily talking to sales teams on the independent side? Usually there'll be a director for the independent channel.
Yeah. Primarily that's where it starts. And I'll tell you, like you said, the epiphany of working with independents and the opportunity to drive unit volume today. The most difficult thing in working with us is, where do we sit? Is it a sales conversation? Is it a shopper conversation? Is it an omni-commerce conversation? Is it a brand, a media conversation?
If brands understood the importance of what you're saying, they bring all of cross-functional to the table.
Well, clearly, I think they should.
They should.
There's an opportunity in terms of, again, if you think about growth, if you were to chart out growth and opportunity, that top right box is where independents sit, because for most brands, it's an untapped opportunity for that upper funnel as well as the lower funnel.
So let's talk to the brands. Biggest struggle, we were at CAGNY. CEO after CEO after CEO said, volume, top line volume, top line volume, top line volume. You're walking in here on this show, you're telling me I'm on the top right.
Yep, it's
which means new to brand.
Yeah, for most brands, it is a new thing. I mean, we work, the partners that we work with are phenomenal partners. But as I walk around shows like this or others, there's so many we haven't had conversations with, and it's not because they're intentionally ignoring or discriminating. I think it's they don't know.
It's the old school model. Don't talk to the independents because the sales team tells their leadership. I'm just telling you as it is, man. It's wrong. If you're top right, I'm sorry, it's wrong.
Yeah, and I think if we, some of that's on us, right? As independents, making sure that we can effectively aggregate and execute. Because if we can't do that, then we're not going to help.
So let's talk measurement, right? One of the most important things, again, volume crisis, is large brands have lost approximately 500 basis points of household penetration. And guess who they've lost it from? They've lost it with the big ones. 4,700 stores, 2,300 stores. I can go on and on.
Sure.
About 15,000 large grocery stores, they've lost household penetration. Can you all help get household penetration through new to brand, and can you measure it and show a brand?
We're not as sophisticated as some of the top retail media networks.
I'm not even talking retail media, right? I'm talking core targeting, not even digital. I guess all the targeting is digital at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, so there's a ton of opportunities for using our retail media network in connection with offers that we are then able to track back to. Are we seeing a lift versus the prior period? Are we seeing comp sales versus the prior year? Distribution. One of the biggest opportunities in independence is that because of this unintentional bias, if you will, or your and my.
I said it, man.
Right, your and my former mistake. Distribution for most brands for core SKUs is not where it should be.
And so what's subbing it instead of those core brands? Is it more the second tier brands? Is it more store brands? Or is it just a miss?
So I think it's a little bit of all the above. I would say, private brands, or I'd say brands, because, private, it shouldn't matter who owns the brand. So brands that retailers have do play a role. What I'd also say is because of the lack of attention, oftentimes the shelf sets aren't what they should be. So we worked with one manufacturer coming out of COVID to look at assortment. And what we found was many of the retailers had outdated shelf sets that included, in fact, a brand that was no longer in business. So there was a hole on the shelf, and if the retailer was smart,
not a disco, not just a disco SKU, but a disco brand.
So if I'm sure the retailers were smart and were shoving things over, but there was a shelf tag for brands that had gone out of business, and so just by fixing the shelf, not doing any fancy, screens in store or stuff like that, by fixing the shelf at a core basis, we were able to grow double digits for that brand just by giving it a little bit of love and attention.
I'm not surprised on the double digit growth at all because it's underpenetrated, like you said. So a big part of that is assortment planning. Mm-hmm. Do you all help independents with assortment planning? Because without that core muscle, it'll be hard.
Wholesalers play a significant role in helping the independents do that. That being said, we work with our brand partners. Again, in terms of, they've invested, you worked at the brand level, right? They invest based on category opportunities. They invest based on shopper insights. And oftentimes those insights don't work all their way back to the independents. And so we augment what the wholesalers do. We enhance it, working with brands to highlight, what's the category trend? What's the shopper insight? What's the brand opportunity? And importantly, this last one, here's how to go buy the stuff and put it on your shelf.
That's the most important one at the end of the day.
Right.
So
that's what brands like.
Let's talk about your own career metamorphosis, right? You came from hardcore brick and mortar just like I did, right? We were literally calling on who's who in the brick and mortar community, where it was a relationship-based business. You're now leading digital in some ways, although it's brand partnerships overall. Digital is a big remit for you. How hard was it to make that transition in your own career and life?
You said we started at CPG. Actually, my first 4 years, I worked for a direct marketing advertising agency.
I did know that, so.
And it's really somewhat unimportant right now, other than the fact that it taught me at an early age, marketing's got to drive action. Versus perhaps had I worked at a big CPG brand that is one of the top brands and it was all upper funnel. I've always had a bias that marketing's got to drive an action. And so whether it was consumer promotions early on, whether it was brand, whether it was the digital loyalty, my Cook Rewards, shifted it closer to marketing that's not just meaningful, but marketing that drives that action. So to some extent, that shift wasn't. I kind of came full circle and came back to back home to some extent, because I think all marketing should drive an action, whether that's awareness, intent, purchase. Connecting all those things is super important. And so the digital transition was digital added on to that, as opposed to digital and, oh, by the way, I've got to go drive action.
So let's talk about the awards that I referred to at the beginning of this episode. So it was nice. It was very kind of you to invite me to the awards. Thoroughly enjoyed watching it. You threw in a surprise. You were first to go up on stage.
Yes.
So tell us about the importance of these awards. Who do you actually award? What do you look for? What is a standout retailer in your mind? Just tell us about the awards. And if there's independents listening to this, which I know they are, or their brands, should brands be talking to you about sponsorships for those awards?
Sure.
Tickle.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for the softball there. So we have an annual awards ceremony, the IGA Awards Ceremony of Excellence, where we award both U.S. and global retailers of the year in conjunction with our wholesale partners who nominate them. So this year we actually had a tie. So it's a very numbers-based approach where we look at the retailers. So we talked about things like assortment and cleanliness. We actually have an entire division who does store surveys and evaluates them. And so here in the U.S., we had two very, very different retailers. We had Orono IGA up in Maine, small market, small retailer, hyperlocal, very community focused. You saw on some of the videos, we talked to some of the shoppers. We got some amazing stories, people almost in tears about the retailer. It's a significant part of their life. The other retailer is actually here in Atlanta, Georgia. If you get a chance to go see Nam Damun. It's a Korean, basically 100,000 square foot stores. They're basically farmers markets. You can find more produce there than I would say at any large big box store. Gorgeous, unique, special. And they do a good job, again, of really catering to their local community. Well, that's Hispanic, Korean, very focused on ethnic and finding stuff that you cannot get anywhere else. Just gorgeous, gorgeous assortment, clean stores. Yet you go into those stores, go to the frozen food section, and you'll find bags of IGA private label vegetables.
Now I have to go, and I've got to send you a picture.
Yeah,
I've got to put it up on the show.
Absolutely, but you can find, there's fish swimming around in tanks that they will fillet for you. There's a bibimbap in store. Pretty much anything you would want at a modern retailer you can find there.
Is it a shortcut then for brands, given the changing nature of our population? I'll be the first one to tell you, large retailers are still figuring out how best to ethnically market. I shouldn't even say ethnic anymore, changing population. And while some of regional grocers are good at it, most aren't. There are exceptions to the rule, though, that I've experienced myself. One down in Texas is exceptional at this. That said, are you therefore offering the shortcut for partnerships to, be contextual towards that changing population?
Yeah, our goal is to be the easy button. You talked earlier about our award ceremony and working with partners. When I was on stage, I was awarding two of our partners. So our partners get highlighted at the same time as our retailers. And so Coca-Cola this year, my alma mater, was our Red Oval Manufacturer of the Year.
I saw that.
They brought a global Olympics program to help our retailers. Retailers in Australia grew significant double-digit growth over the course of the period, and are maybe perhaps now trying to figure out how to cycle that unit growth. So global program there, and then we worked on the supplier side with Instacart, because they've helped us significantly in terms of bringing insights and a focus on independence that others aren't doing.
I got to imagine Instacart is playing a huge role for you, given exactly what you said, right? They're in-store at independence that most others aren't even paying attention to. So that is actually a big plus to have Instacart as a partner. So I want to talk about Michael, the person, right? Let's talk about leadership,
Okay.
right? You work with a lot of people. You work with retail, you work with brands, you work with your own teams and people at IGA. And then you have to encounter people like me. So what is your approach to leadership? Like, what matters to you the most? Is it authenticity? It is trust? You've been in this industry as long as I have. Love to hear what's on your mind.
Yeah, so great question. I think we were talking earlier before the podcast about the virtuous mission that we're on at IGA of helping family-owned and operated stores build their businesses. And that really resonated with me. And I think from a leadership standpoint, being authentic, being transparent is critically important. But I think another thing, and I've heard you talk about this too, is having a curiosity mindset and saying, well, just because I'm in whatever position doesn't mean I don't have a lot to learn.
And that was my biggest regret, right? I didn't spend enough time with seven. Until I got to know you, I didn't take independence seriously. Once I got to know you, I'm like 7,000. Population changing. I could have gotten brand penetration in places I didn't have.
Yeah. And again, that virtuous mission, IGA operates as a not-for-profit. So any revenue that we bring in ahead of costs, so salaries, technology, data, all that stuff, buying media, all that stuff, anything above that gets reinvested for the benefit of our retailers.
And that reinvestment, is it typically just a dividend, or is it actually capabilities, media?
Services, media, like we talked about our retail media network. That was something we went out and did on behalf of our retailers without a quid pro quo. We want them to have more shoppers into their stores. And so we did that in partnership with brands, and brands participate 52 weeks of the year. But we won't talk about it on camera, but I would imagine that most brands who are paying for retail media right now, if we were to tell them you can be on ad with IGA 52 weeks a year, if I were to tell them the cost publicly, they'd probably be like...
For 7,000 outlets.
Well, 2,200 in the U.S., but yes.
2,200 in the U.S. But you represent arguably a much larger penetration than the U.S. alone. The volume crisis is worldwide.
Yeah.
It's not just Cagney. CEOs talked about the whole world. So let me summarize a couple things, and then I want to ask you one last question.
Okay.
So to me, the reason why one would partner with you is the reach in the U.S. to those 2,200. You're probably underpenetrated. In a role like mine, previous role like mine, CCO, we probably didn't pay enough attention. Brands are struggling for volume growth. Penetration is the way to get it, household penetration. Working on contextual marketing is one way to chase it. Then also the introductions you make to wholesalers, the connections you make to wholesalers, et cetera, is another one. And to me, it's a great place for brands to come look for new to brand and household penetration. Let me ask you in closing, summarize, if I were to ask you to tell our audience, right, brands, why should they come to IGA? What would you say?
I think it's all about opportunity for growth. And again, you understand that sell-in at wholesale, you don't understand the sell-through at retail. And making that opaqueness more transparent, whether that's, as you mentioned, distribution, right? If a brand has 80% distribution on their top 10 SKUs in the marketplace and a 50% at IGA, perhaps, closing that gap is not that hard, right? Because you don't have to convince independents of doing something heroic. You just have to help them understand.
You don't have to work with massive procurement teams of 70.
Right, you just have to have...
And fill 30 forms just to say hi.
They just need to understand the opportunity that they're missing out on. And when you explain that opportunity to them of what they can get and what they can do and how they can increase sales, then brands will increase sales. And as I said, my job really is a consultant to the brands to help them sell more. And if I can do that, I help our retailers sell more. And again, that's that virtuous mission that provides value for shoppers, retailers, and the brands.
Now, brands want to get in touch with you. More independent grocers who listen to us want to get in touch with you. What's the best way?
I think you're going to include my email and LinkedIn.
Your LinkedIn will be in the digital liner notes.
Happy to do that. Always up for a great conversation. And like I said, it's kind of that curiosity mindset. So I'm always learning, always open to conversations. And, we can work with many more brand partners.
Let me wrap that up by saying pleasure to have you on the show. You are a repeat guest at this point.
Do I get the vest like
5 gets you the Letterman one.
Oh, okay.
So we got
a few more to go. Maybe Peter will show up for one of these.
But we'd love to have back often. Yeah. We'd love to tell the story to brands of household penetration, new to brand, etc. This is a wonderful opportunity. I can't thank you enough for driving 30 minutes, coming to see me, and doing this episode with me. So sincerely, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and happy to do it, and look forward to continuing to contribute with CPG Guys.
There's going to be a lot more conversations we're going to have with Michael. But if you or anyone you know wants to be on the CPG Guys and contribute to our ongoing community discussion, please drop us a line at contact@cpgguys.com. Again, that's contact@cpgguys.com. Best way to find us, go to a web browser. Our URL is www.cpgguys.com. To our followers, you matter. You shape the show. That's why we exist. We can't thank you enough for the clicks, likes, DMs. Peter and I are flattered when you say you want to take a picture with us. So you can keep it coming. Thank you for doing what Michael is doing, which is shooting episodes with us at conferences, making time for us. I will request you to leave us a rating on Apple and a review. The rating tells us how we're doing. The review tells us, are we having the right conversations? With that, it's a wrap. I want to thank Michael again for joining me today. We'll see you soon on another episode of, wait for it, the CPG Guys.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.